you're telling me you be. Tell me the first token that passed between you and me. Oh, do you remember that night on yon lean hill, when we first met together, and sorry now to tell. Oh, the rain, it falls on my heavy locks.
This is the footage of the recent Blooms and Barnacles interview with PJ and Jack, two of the volunteers at Sweny's Chemist in Dublin. It's one of the locations used in James Joyce's Ulysses. For a link to the full Blooms and Barnacles podcast, check out the links below.
Okay, let's begin. All right, we're here at Sweny's Pharmacy in Dublin with PJ and Jack, and that's Dermot, and I'm Kelly. All right, you guys want to give a quick self-introduction?
PJ. I'm with PJ Murphy, and 9 years ago, I heard about this place. A friend of mine was involved, two friends of mine were involved with a guy who was trying to rescue it, and I had time, so I said I'd like to come along and help, and I came in, and my background is teaching and retail, so we had no money, so we didn't get funding from anyone, so I decided that we'd invite volunteers to help us, because I said it's a great place to be, you'll never be disappointed, and you don't know what's going to come through the door. So within 4 months we had 10 volunteers, and we've more or less run it like this, since then, 9 years. We've had people who, everyone contributes a little bit, and everyone has helped make the place work, and we still don't get funding, so we have to find a way to make our rent. So we sell a lot of lemon soap, and we sell books, we sell postcards, and we get donations from different people who come for readings, particularly groups of students who initially they study Joyce in the second level, so we get lots of students throughout the year with their teachers, and they have readings, and of course some of them give nothing, some of them buy a bar of soap, some of them buy a book, but it doesn't matter, they're always welcome anyway. So.
All right, great. Thank you so much. And Jack?
Yeah, we do it for love. I'm an actor. I walked in here 2 years later, 2011, because I'd just been asked to play Leopold Bloom in an outdoor performance on Bloomsday, and I'd never read the whole book, so I thought, okay, this is going to be a really edited down thing, obviously, so really you should sort of know it to play it properly. And so I just happened by serendipity to walk in front of this place, and I thought, like, how is this place? And it was all about that. So I thought, wow. So I went to some of the readings, and that got me through the performance, just in terms of the vibe, the zeitgeist of it. And then I just kept coming. And then you end up behind the counter as a volunteer, because we're all volunteers here. Nobody takes any money. And you just love the place. I mean, I think probably most actors anyway would love somewhere like this, where you know that this is the wood that Joyce and Beckett and Wilde and Yeats touched, because it hasn't been changed since before their day. And so I just love it. And just been involved then. And then if you're really bad, you end up on the board. And so, yeah, there you go.
Did you end up on the board?
Yeah, for your sins, you know what I mean? But anyway, and so we're facing challenging times now, but we're determined to keep it going. We've had to sign a new lease, that the landlord, in fairness to him, he hadn't raised the rent for 5 years, and like the rents were all gone up like this, but then he doubled it, and that was last June. So, you know, we have to prove that we can keep going, and maybe look at other ways of pulling in some money in that. But we're doing really well what we do. It's the lemon soap, the books and all that, donations to the readings, tour groups come in more and more, etc. like that. And if anything, I think we're one of the places in Dublin you have to visit. Like Fáilte Ireland, which is Gaelic for Welcome to Ireland, which is our Irish Tourism Board, they acknowledge that. They don't give us any money, but they're really happy we do what we do for nothing. But yeah, we're sort of like a bunch of literary hippies, really. Bridget's real hippie over there, aren't you?
How did you degree in English if you don't mind him.
A hippie degree.
A hippie degree.
Yeah.
Thanks very much.
Yeah, so there you go, and you know, I give literary tours which involve the writers who would have been known around here, Joyce, Yeats, Wilde, etc. But I love bringing people in here because this is a place that those people would have been, and so it's got their spirit in it.
Yeah.
You know.
Excellent. And you said you got into Ulysses through acting, Jack?
Yeah.
And PJ, did you talk about how you got interested in Ulysses? What first drew you to Ulysses?
Well, I studied Ulysses. I studied French literature when I was in my teens, and Joyce was on my Irish and Anglo-Irish course, so I read part of Ulysses. I didn't finish it. I didn't even read. I think I read up to about 11 pages and put it down to go back the following week, and that was in '68. Never did get back to it. Now read it 54 times. So I made up for lost time. But I remember my professor was a Professor Ennis, and she was in UCD, and we read Dubliners. And what I remember of Dubliners was the story called Clay, when Maria cut the barn brack so well that it didn't look as if it was cut at all. So I remember nothing academic or nothing else, just how the barn brack was cut. And of course, we read, of course, Dubliners 3 times a week, so I've had many times to catch up on Maria and how she's still going. So
excellent. And do you guys have a favorite chapter in Ulysses, or a favorite scene, or?
My favorite chapter is Sirens.
Sirens.
Because Sirens is chapter 11, and it's full of music. And of course, Joyce was a tenor, and he was a guitarist, and he mentions many songs in Sirens, and one of them is The Croppy Boy. When I was 5, my father taught it me because I came from a farming background, and we'd have a hulu at the end of each week, and everyone had their party pieces. We'd all have 5 or 6, but The Croppy Boy is one of mine, among others. So I didn't realize it was from Ulysses until I read Sirens, and then, there it was, popping its head out. So.
Awesome. Wonderful.
And for me, we're getting interrupted by a French person by the looks of things.
Oh, come in.
Just having a podcast here, so
this is Dominique. He does our pictures in front of the window here.
Anyway, my favourite is 4 favourites: Lestrygonians, Cyclops, Nausicaa, and Penelope, and I like them all for different reasons. Lestrygonians, because I think it's such a beautiful chapter. You've got a very funny scene at the start with Nosy Flynn and Bloom, afraid that the drip is going to come down out of his nose into his glass the whole time, and Nosy Flynn is like a real dove, you know, and all that. And then he goes to the window, and he has this beautiful paragraph of where he's thinking about making love to Molly the first time in Ho's head, and it's quite steamy at the end. So, like, I find to be careful if I read that too. But it's beautiful, and Joyce being so cheeky the way he was. And you have to remember, this came out in 1922 when you never wrote about sexual matters. You didn't. That's why he was a dirty writer, supposedly. And he bookends that paragraph, which is very poignant, even though it's about the act of sexual love, with 2 flies basically doing it on the window. 2 flies buzzed, stuck. Now, I don't know what you think, but when 2 flies are buzzing stuck on the window, there's only one thing they're doing. They're not talking to each other. So it's funny, and yet you may not get that. But anyway, then you've got Cyclops, and I think that's fantastic. You know, just the whole thing about the anti-Semitism and how he deals with that, and the citizen and everything. And then, like Nausicaa, again, something you have to be careful about reading, because the paragraph that got it banned is an amazingly written paragraph. And with the fireworks and that, which he was taking a little bit of a liberty with. You know, it starts at around 8 o'clock at night, and would you have fireworks at a time of the year in Dublin when on a nice day it wouldn't get dark till 10:30? I don't know, but it doesn't matter. It's worth it. And then Penelope, for obvious reasons. He called it himself the clou of the book, which is French for star. By the way, you'll notice we have a sound effect in the background, which is of sellotape.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, sellotape being
What's that stuff?
yeah. No, it's interesting. It's interesting, Bridget. I just needed to explain it because they'd have thought that my voice was a bit odd.
Yeah, we're going for like podcast verite.
Yeah.
Okay, I won't disturb.
We're capturing all the sounds.
Bridget is wrapping soap, so that's,
okay.
we need sellotape just for to wrap it up. So.
But yeah, would we have time for a quick little snippet or not?
We absolutely would.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to choose something very safe, so don't worry about it. Which is
There's no need to be safe. Blooms and Barnacles is not a safe space.
Are you sure? Okay, well, I'll give you a choice then. The bit from Cyclops, which is the anti-Semitism bit, but it's funny.
That was Dermot's bit to read at Bloomsday this year.
Yeah.
It's I think the first Ulysses you ever read.
Yeah.
Or I'll go straight for Nausicaa.
So my choice is between masturbation and anti-Semitism.
There you go.
Taking the two. So.
Unfortunately, he didn't deal with the two together, but...
Ugh.
or I can give you Lestrygonians, which is sort of
I do like Lestrygonians.
Okay, let's do
It's
that
one of my
then.
favorites.
Okay, cool. Talk amongst yourselves there for 1 second.
We can edit it out.
And you know, Dermot has never actually read Ulysses. That's kind of
Yet.
he says he won't, but it's like we're have a pretend teacher-student relationship on the.
Yeah, it helps because then I can be the innocent naive.
Okay, here we go.
I'm just gonna read it.
Right, this is Lestrygonians. I'm just going to edit it a little bit. I'm going to jump from place to place a little bit. Okay, it's not going to go on too long. He entered Davy Byrne's moral pub. He doesn't chat. Stands a drink now and then, but in leap year, once in 4. Cashed a cheque for me once. What'll I take now? He drew his watch. Let me see now. Shandygaff. Hello, Bloom, Nosy Flynn said from his nook. Hello, Flynn. How's things? Tip-top. Let me see. I'll take a glass of Burgundy and let me see. Have you a cheese sandwich? Yes, sir. Like a few olives too if they had them. Italian I prefer. Good glass of Burgundy. Take away that. Lubricate. A nice salad. Cool as a cucumber. Tom Kernan can dress. Puts gusto into it. Pure olive oil. Wife well? Quite well, thanks. Cheese sandwich then. Gorgonzola, have you? Yes, sir. Nosy Flynn sipped his grog. Doing any singing those times? Look at his mouth. Could whistle in his own ear. Flap ears to match. Music. Knows as much about it as my coachman. Still, better tell him. Does no harm. Free ad. She's engaged for a big tour end of this month, you may have heard, perhaps. No, oh, that's the style. Who's getting it up? The curate served. How much is that? 7 pence, sir. Thank you, sir. Mr. Bloom cut his sandwich into slender strips. Mr. McTrigger, easier than the dreamy, creamy stuff. His 500 wives had the time of their lives. Mustard, sir? Thank you. And I'll jump a little bit now. Now I remember, Nosy Flynn said, putting his hand into his pocket to scratch his groin. Who is this was telling me? Isn't Blazes Boylan mixed up in that? A warm shock of air, heat of mustard, haunched onto Mr. Bloom's heart. He raised his eyes and met the stare of a bilious clock. 2. Pub clock, 5 minutes fast. Time goes on, hands moving. 2. Not yet. His midriff yearned and then upwards sank within him, yearned more longingly. Wine. He sipped the cordial juice, and bidding his throat strongly to speed it, set his wine glass delicately down. Yes, he said, he's the organizer in point of fact. No fear, no brains. Nosy Flynn snuffled and scratched, Flea having a good square meal. Then I will jump to when Bloom goes over to the window, leaving them alone, needing to be alone. Stuck on the pane, 2 flies buzzed, stuck. Glowing wine on his palate, lingered, swallowed, crushing in the wine-pressed grapes of Burgundy. Sun's heat it is. Seems to a secret touch, telling me, memory. Touched his sense, moistened, remembered. Hidden under wild ferns on Hoath, below us bay, sleeping sky. No sound, the sky. The bay purple by the Lion's Head, green by Drumleck, yellow-green towards Sutton, fields of undersea, the lines faint brown in grass, buried cities. Pillowed on my coat she had her hair, earwigs in the heather, scrubbed my hand under her nape. You'll toss me all. Oh, wonder! Cool soft with ointments her hand touched me, caressed. Her eyes upon me did not turn away. Ravaged over her I lay. Full lips, full open, kissed her mouth. Yum. Softly she gave me in my mouth the seed cake warm and chewed. Mawkish pulp her mouth had mumbled, sweet and sour with spittle. Joy, I ate it, joy. Young life, her lips that gave me pouting. Soft, warm, sticky gum jelly lips. Flowers her eyes were, take me, willing eyes. Pebbles fell, she lay still, a goat. No one. High on Ben Hoth rhododendrons, a nanny goat walking sure-footed, dropping currants. Screened under ferns, she laughed warm-folded. Wildly I lay on her, kissed her eyes, her lips, her stretched neck beating. Woman's breasts full in her blouse of nun's veiling. Fat nipples upright, hot I tongued her. She kissed me, I was kissed, all yielding. She tossed my hair, kissed, she kissed me. Me and me now, stuck. The flies buzzed. Wow.
Nice job.
I love that. Yeah.
Where are you from? You've just come in? Where are you? Norway, we have our copy of Ulysses in Norse as well, Norwegian and so. As you know, James Joyce studied Norwegian because he wanted to write to Ibsen. He was very impressed by Ibsen. So he did write to him and Ibsen wrote back. So there's a letter from Ibsen to him. So. And New Zealand, what part of New Zealand?
Dunedin.
Are you studying over here? Just visiting?
No, just we're playing a show. We're a band doing
Oh, you're a band?
tonight. But,
Where are you playing?
dropped it twice.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah. But I'm a big Joyce fan, so.
Well, you're in the right place.
Yeah.
We're chapter 5. Leopold Bloom has been sent in here by his wife Molly, having been in the pub across the road, which was called Conway's in Ulysses, and then goes down to the church, which was called All Hallows, which is now called Andrews. Then comes here, sent by his wife Molly to buy her face cream, and of course,
Actually,
the lemon soda.
the whole thing about Ibsen is that, you know, he was realist. He was into realism and the brutal reality of life, and so was Joyce, and that's why he loved him. Oscar Wilde, on the other hand, the other great man from around here, thought differently. He said, I hate vulgar realism in literature. A man who would call a spade should be compelled to use one. So, different strokes.
Take that, Ibsen.
So,
Shall we continue?
yes.
All right, so just in case our listeners don't know much about Swenys, could you give us some quick history about the location here?
Well, we're here since 1847. It was bought by a guy called Mark Sweny, or later they put an extra E on because his son Frederick married a Catholic, and he put an extra E, but they were called Sweny and Sweny, depending on which side of the family you're talking to.
That's an Irish subtlety.
Yes.
Okay, yeah,
And of course,
I wouldn't have picked up on that.
yeah. Anyway, it ran as a chemist until 2009. In February it closed down. Then we came in, and we've been running it on a volunteer basis since then. And of course, the most important thing is that it features on the 16th of June in 1904 in Ulysses, when Leopold Bloom comes in here to buy his face cream and also his lemon soap.
Right.
And of course forgets the prescription, and of course the chemist has to look it up in his prescription book. And when he's doing that, he describes the interior of the chemist, which of course hasn't changed. It's early Victorians.
Right, excellent. Are there like any interesting facts people should know about Swenys outside of that?
Well, Lionel Sweny, for example, 13-year-old son of Frederick, that guy there in the three-piece suit, he died in the 1916 Rising.
Okay.
I realize that a lot of people in America don't actually know much about the Rising, but here it's massive. It's like our seminal moment in history, and led a few years later to the War of Independence in 1919 to 21. We're going to be celebrating the centenary of that soon. And so it's very fresh in our memory now, because 2 years ago in 2016 we celebrated the centenary of the 1916 Rising.
Right.
And it's called the Rising because of the connotations with the risen Christ.
Oh,
And
wow.
it was seen as a blood sacrifice by the people who led the Rising against the British. But anyway, there were a lot of civilians that were killed in the crossfires, and Lionel Sweny was one of them.
Okay.
And his father never recovered. Drove him mad. And it's very sad. He was just one of many. and they figured he might have been giving water to a soldier because there was a big ambush down the road here, past Merrion Square in Mount Street, and a lot of British soldiers lost their lives, and they figured some people were going out to give them water, but the British were young, raw recruits, and they probably didn't know whether someone was trying to help the soldier or finish him off, and who knows who shot him, but it was really rough on the father. Yeah. So that's one fact.
Sure.
Also, we have at least one ghost.
Oh, I want to know about the ghost.
Yes. PJ saw one.
Yeah, I came here. One of our volunteers, she was singing down in Vicar Street. So I cycle everywhere. So I left my bike in here one Sunday evening and then went off to Vicar Street, the theatre, to hear our volunteers singing. So I came back here at about 11:45. It was this time of the year in November, and it was kind of a day like this. It was kind of mild. So I opened the door and there was this blast of cold air hit me. So I said, something going on here. And then I came in and there was a tall woman standing behind the counter with a big hat, and my hair stood up on end. So I was saying to myself, I must be seeing things and it can't be real. But I had my bike in the back, so I still had to pass and go into the back room to collect it. So then I said, well, maybe it was my reflection in the mirror, but I hadn't been drinking, so I mean, if I'd been drinking, it could have been an excuse. But anyway, I came back and walked the way I'd come in, but she walked to meet me and went into where we make the tea, and I did see her, and also the place was icy cold.
Right.
And then I was asking some of the family if anyone of that age had died. She was about 30, and I described it. So yeah, that was such and such a one. So
and then earlier this year, I had a photo taken just behind the counter there, and I was holding a bar of our lemon soap, and I was on my own, and I happened to show it to a friend that I'd just met at the time, an English woman who lives down in County Cork. On my phone, she said, "There's someone standing next to you," and I said, "What do you mean?" I hadn't told her about this one. And she said, "There's a young woman with a long leather apron standing next to you." So it sounds like a different person, because PJ's one sounds more like a lady, very class conscious at the time. This one was a worker, and she said that I'm not sure if she died in the place, but maybe she used to come in here or something like that.
I'm not staying here anymore, Emil.
There she is, it's Bridget. Yeah, and but she says she really likes what's going on in the place. So
it was dark when I came in because the lights are over here, so I had to come through to, and it was just the street lights that I saw her in, so, and so I couldn't. I don't think she was wearing a leather apron.
Yeah, it seems appropriate there. Do you have a couple of ghosts?
Yeah,
in
it was nice, but
It'd be a
there's need more than
disappointment
one
if you
anyway.
didn't.
So yeah.
Tell her about his poetry. Tell her about Joyce's poetry and his play.
Joyce's portrait and his play?
His poetry.
Poetry. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Bridget loves his poetry.
Well, he wrote poems first, and then he wrote Exiles, only one play. Exiles was published in 1918, and so Joyce's favourite words, and one of them is suffused. So everything you read in Joyce, you'll find suffused to dapple through it. Oblique is another one, so you'll come across that in Exiles.
But do you know that one? She weeps over Rahoon.
Yeah,
that was very direct. That was all about, the story of the dead, which was in turn the story, real life of Nora Barnacle. That she used to step out with this young man, and they were 17, and it was very innocent by today's standards, but her family were perhaps a little bit afraid that something might happen. In those days, if you got pregnant out of marriage, that was it for you. So they sent her away, and the night before, he spent the whole night standing in the rain, looking up at her window, very Romeo and Juliet-like, and because of that, he caught a chill and died. So he was this perfect person in her heart. And so Joyce was very affected by that. And like the last time he came back to Ireland, he went to Galway to visit her family, and he visited that young man's grave, the real young man. Now, if you do that means it's almost weird. Like,
Do you know that young man's name?
yeah, it was Michael Bodkin in reality, but Michael Fury, he made him in The Dead, which was, like the fury and passion of the West versus the intellectualism of Joyce's Dubliner.
Gotcha.
So that was the significance. But it's beautiful, and then you have you know, because that whole thing was set off by a song that Nora told Joyce that he used to sing, which was The Lass of Aughrim, and Joyce put it into the Dead with Greta hearing it, and PJ sings it. So if you ask him nicely, he might even sing it for you.
Well, I can sing it now if you want. Or do you have time?
Can we do it at the end?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Certainly, yeah.
Excellent. Okay. Awesome. And you know for sure that Joyce would have shopped here?
Well, he has too much in Ulysses not to have shopped here.
Okay.
He also, I think he would have bought the lemon soap, so because the lemon soap has always been sold here as well. So.
Is that always been their specialty?
Well, because it was sold, I mean, with everything else that they sold as well, but it was one of their specialties as well, and also the face cream as well, which of course Molly wanted, and he was sent in to buy as well. So.
He may have been influenced too by Nora, who of course used to work out the back as a chambermaid.
Right.
And probably being a woman, she would have been very likely to buy the stuff. He would have asked her, what do you buy in there? Because I doubt Joyce would have been too much into buying fancy stuff. He'd have kept his money, if he had any, for drink. You know, because he used to go around bumming money off people and spend it on drink. Sorry, Bridget.
No, it's just going to hand you the poem if you want to read it.
Oh, it's very short.
Go for it.
It's beautiful.
She weeps over Rahun. Rain on Rahun falls softly, softly falling, where my dark lover lies. Sad is his voice that calls me, sadly calling, at grey moon rise. Love, hear thou, how soft, how sad his voice is ever calling, ever unanswered, and the dark rain falling, then as now. Dark too our hearts, O love, shall lie and cold, as his sad heart has lain, under the moon-grey nettles, the black mould, and muttering rain. And that was written in Trieste in 1913.
Wonderful.
So you can hear references to the last paragraph of The Dead as well. Falling softly, softly falling.
Excellent. So I guess I'd like to ask you guys some questions then about the current operation here at Swenys. So Swenys as a chemist closed in 2008? Nine.
In February of that year.
Okay. And Swenys now is totally run by volunteers?
Yeah.
Okay. And a board that...
A board that's also volunteers.
Just volunteers.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And but you know, that's the thing. We live in a world that's far more commercial now. So we are looking to seek connections with, you know, academia or anywhere that might be interested in some sort of connection where they could help us in some small way to stay open, and we could help them through some sort of mutual exchange, whatever, or exchange as in they come over here. Not sure we need to go over there, but hey, and all that, because there are several sites around Dublin that are officially funded to do with James Joyce. We have the James Joyce Centre. It's a lovely old Georgian house. It's gorgeous, but it has a very tenuous connection to his works. You know, Dennis J. McGinney, the dance teacher, you know, he's an extra, not even a minor role in Ulysses, and he lived there in real life. And you then have the Writers' Centre, which is sort of a bit of a hodgepodge kamali, you know, and you pay into those places, and they're salaried, those people. And then you've got the new Molly Museum of Literature in Ireland, which is opening up next year, and they've 20 million euro into it or whatever, and that's partly University College Dublin, because Joyce went to college there, around that building. But you know, he didn't eulogize it the way he's eulogized Swenys and the soap, and like the soap carries on into other chapters, you know, and it talks to him in rhyming couplets in Circe, the Nighttown chapter, you know, and the druggist, Sweny the druggist, comes back in that as well. So and like he's forever referring to it outside the National Museum as well. And so it's part of Ulysses. It's a real part. And when you see other parts of it disappearing, like 7 Ethel Street, where Bloom was supposed to have lived, that's gone because of the attitude towards, you know, buildings that mean something in Dublin. It doesn't matter, you know, sure, we'll put up a plaque. you know, typical. And so now that's a private hospital. And now the Ormond Hotel is being knocked down and refurbished up, and they'll probably
are they knocking it down, or I thought they were just refurbishing?
No, it's
They've
gone.
just kept the facade.
Just
but
the
rest
facade.
is gone.
Okay.
No, to be honest, most of the facade there is going to be gone as well. There's a huge tooth gap in the middle of it already. I've seen the scaffolding because I live in Capel Street around the corner. See it every day. And I was involved with a couple of others in dressing up in Edwardian gear and protesting outside it.
Oh, wow.
When they were originally given permission. And then the councillor helped us and we blocked them. And then they reapplied and sort of rejigged their thing a little bit and they were given permission. So essentially money rules in Dublin.
Okay.
And so, you know, they'll call a bar sirens or something. But don't expect to feel as if you're in the place.
It won't be original, though.
No.
Not at all, no. In fact, for sale sign with Dublin us today. So
but that's the thing. This is original.
Yeah.
It's sacred. You know, that's the very wood they would have touched. And like you see this picture here, the Turkish baths of 1860 Lincoln Place. It looks like a mosque. And there's a guy with a top hat there. Very Abe Lincoln. Ironically, Lincoln Place, where this is, was named after Abe Lincoln.
Oh.
At around that time.
And that's the Turkish baths in that photograph.
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go. Thank you.
Yeah,
Bridget.
we'll make sure to put a picture of them up on the website.
Yeah.
So there isn't. You feel like there's not much interest in historic preservation in Dublin.
Well, in official circles, no, it's better than it used to be.
Okay.
Wouldn't you say, PJ?
Absolutely, yeah. Well, the 70s, 60s, they saw a lot of stuff disappearing, and even the Turkish baths, I think, disappeared in 1959. So that was a beautiful building. So.
7 Eccles Street was destroyed during that era too, wasn't it? If I'm not mistaken.
No, that was later, actually. I would say I used to. I studied Joyce in Eccles Street, and I think it could have been 7 I did it in as well. But then, of course, the Mater, they bought those buildings and they knocked them down and extended the Mater Hospital. So they just have the plaque now, as Jack has just said.
Yeah. I mean, in the 60s and 70s, there was a sort of an easy out by sort of going, oh, well, that's our colonial past. We're going to do something new. But I don't know what the 60s and 70s were like architecturally in the States, but here they were, I mean, really terrible stuff. Everyone using the name of Le Corbusier to justify brutalist crap, basically. Hawkins House and all those.
No,
oh my God. Really, I mean, stuff now that, you know, they're falling down, they're knocking down, and yet the old Georgian houses like around the corner here and that still look amazing.
The architects at that time were saying, the new boys on the block were saying, well, the old Georgian buildings weren't meant to last.
Yeah.
And then their 1970s abominations
they actually had a protest in the streets saying no.
They were trying to knock down Ely Place up there, and they succeeded in knocking down part of it, but then the protests were successful, so the rest still stands.
I would think that tearing down all the old buildings would take away Dublin's character to some extent. Because we've noticed that a lot of the newer buildings here, if you kind of went like that, you could pretend like you were in Portland. They look very generic.
But you
don't have any
some people, well, a lot of people, it's just about money.
Yeah.
And some people have no soul.
Right.
Well, the same thing's happening in Portland.
Yeah, the developers in Portland are totally soulless.
They are soulless, yeah. And they're getting worse by each year that follows. They get a little less.
They'll buy people's houses out from under them and knock them down and evict the tenants.
When you look at what the care and attention they took back in the Georgian days, sort of like even like the old museum, PJ, in Trinity College, which is now a working part of the college, geology, geography, and engineering. You look at the outside, they have details of Irish wildflowers around these Byzantine-shaped windows, frames, and inside the ceiling and everything, the stairwell, is just amazing. And you just think the care and the money they put into it, whereas now it's more sort of, we just, on the sort of drawing, or what, you know, the sort of, what do they call that again, where they do it in little cardboard to show people. You know, when they're showing off what the building will be like.
Oh, like
anyway, they always beware when they stick loads of trees around it to make it look good. Take out the trees and then see what it looks like.
Yeah,
it's usually not great.
There's a bank there on O'Connell Street, the Irish Permanent Bank. Anything beautiful work inside it. It's magnificent. It's the TSB bank.
Yeah, I know it.
Inside, it's just magnificent. You can't take your eyes off it. Beautiful.
And another bank down in Dame Street, just by the corner of Dublin Castle, that Dean and Woodward, or Dean and Dean, his son, did. Because Dean and Woodward did the old museum. That was like early 1800s. Beautiful.
I would think that was such a huge, like it seems like Dublin's a huge tourist destination right now.
Yeah.
That to support the tourist trade, you'd want all the old buildings up because that would be such a draw. And especially the Joyce stuff, it seems like even if people haven't read his books, they're interested in that aspect of Dublin's history as well.
Well, they are. Well, most people have read Ulysses outside Ireland rather than in it. And of course it's been translated into so many languages. We have many translations up above to the right here.
Yes.
Including Korean.
Korean.
We have Ukrainian and Farsi and of course all the European languages. And the Farsi one was interesting because the guy who translated it was a barrister from Tehran, and he brought the books over initially to give them to Trinity College. Then he came in to us, stumbled on us, and he said, okay, he read part of his translation for us in Farsi, and then he said, okay, we're going to leave them here for you. So.
But like, Joyce was really only rehabilitated in the public eye, as distinct from the people who liked that sort of stuff, in the 90s, like Wilde. You know, then they started sticking up a statue or two, and eventually named a bridge after Joyce and all that. I would suggest mainly because around 1997, I think everyone here started becoming cool and less religious, perhaps, and also, realized that there were people coming from other countries that were sort of going, "Where is all this stuff to James Joyce? Who? Oh, him. Yeah. All right. We better stick up an old plaque or a statue then." So eventually they got it together. But like, for example, the statue of him, which is lovely, which people call by a very rude name, down by the Spire in O'Connell Street. It's just on North Earth Street. And the tourist kiosk, which is removable, hides it. Now, I don't think it's deliberate, but it's sort of typical that, he's not seen as important because the guy who sort of places the kiosk wouldn't know who he was.
Yeah.
Like we'd have the Vikings experience tour, like the duck boats that come around here.
Yeah.
Vikings found at Dublin, so they have Viking little helmets on.
Dermot loves the
They're always
Viking
roaring
boats.
when they go by. And when they go by here, you'd hear your man going, Swenys, James Joyce, Ulysses, everyone says it's a great book, no one's read it. But they actually recommend us, though.
That's good.
Yeah.
And I wonder if, Joyce could come back and he realized that his statue is hidden behind a tourist kiosk or whatever. He'd be like, of course, they never appreciated me in my time and they don't appreciate me now.
Yeah.
Nothing has changed.
But he would love this place because the reason he left Dublin was the parochialism and the inbred sort of thing. And now, because we're such a multicultural society, and then all these people come in, and even if they didn't really know what the caper was before, PJ or one of us inveigles them in, and they are caught like flies in a cobweb, and then they can't leave. And then they end up like I did behind the counter, and then they come over for drinks across the road to what we call the office, Kennedy's pub, which used to be Conway's in Ulysses, and they're part and parcel of it. So then, he would love the fact that, like, I'll give you an example, 3 couples who are very close friends of ours met here. An Irish girl and a Japanese guy, it's Kenji, Lisa and Kenji, a Brazilian guy with a German girl, Bruno, Milena, and then you have Fionn and Helena, which Fionn is Irish, a whiskey expert, no less, and Helena is Portuguese. Now, Joyce would have loved that, but I don't think he'd have believed it in his day.
Dublin's gotten far more cosmopolitan over the years.
Yeah, but it's about making people love what the base of it is. The fact that there were so many brilliant writers from such a small place and what they had to say. So that's what we do.
Wonderful. Have you ever had any sort of well-known, like famous Joyce enthusiasts come through here, like David Norris or Frank Delaney or anyone
David
like that?
Norris, we have a picture of him. Show it out there with Bridget from Bloomsday. Can you see it there, Bridget?
He also comes to our breakfast in the office across the road on the 16th of June. We've also had Fritz Zen, who specialises in Finnegan's Wake. He's been here a couple of times.
Hold that so the camera can see it. I'm hoping the camera was seeing this.
Yeah, there's.
You want to see it too? That's one.
How
I feel like we saw this when we were here in the summer.
We can edit this into the
it was here. That was taken this year, and David was here. So.
Yeah, so we were here in August of this year.
This was Bloomsday.
Okay. Yeah.
Bloomsday this year. June.
Yeah, we've had several people who would be famous in and around the UK and Ireland. Not sure about the States. We had that woman over who was famous author. What was her name again? Anyway, famous author. We're claiming her.
Okay.
Because I do the Facebook page, so I put her up, and everyone's going, oh, you know. So, yeah. Also, to know if any music fans. Portland would have a lot of music fans.
Portland does have a lot of music
fans. To know
fans.
if they know the Waterboys, an Irish band.
I know the Waterboys.
Yeah, Mike Scott came in.
Okay.
Yeah, with his kid in a buggy. He had shades on with a hat, but I recognised him straight away. I didn't say it, and I remember it well because we were down to 4 bars of lemon soap, and he bought 2. You know, if he was anyone else, I'd say, could you just take one? Yeah.
We had the star of The Commitments, Roddy Doyle. He was in here one day in his leather gear with his motorbike outside, so he bought lots of soap.
Now, do you think those guys have read Ulysses, or do they just like the location?
No, I think he had read it.
Okay.
And the other day we had Professor Declan Kybert. He was my tutor in college, and he came in with his wife.
Oh, wonderful.
And he used to lecture in your Joyce's works in UCD.
And also in Notre Dame in the States as well.
Oh, wonderful.
And we had Paul Muldoon as one of our famous laureate winners. He lives in New York. He came in to buy.
We also had a state senator, Kennedy, from Buffalo, New York State.
Okay.
And he came over because he was interested in hooking up with us, possibly on the centenary of when Ulysses was published, which was February the 2nd, 1922, so 2022.
Okay.
Because a university in Buffalo has lots of Joyce papers.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah. So that was very interesting as well. Came in and read a long chat. So that was up on our Facebook as well.
So you guys are definitely on the map.
Yeah.
So your building was recently sold.
No, it's for sale.
It's for sale.
We thought it was for sale, but no, they put up a for sale sign just today. So they had one up, and then they took it down. There's a bigger one than that. So,
okay.
So 3.25 million. So
yeah.
We're still doing the lottery.
Euro, guys, if you have some spare change, please buy it.
Does that make you concerned about your future here?
Of course. Yeah.
It's always a worry.
Yeah.
See, it's a very nakedly commercial world we live in now, particularly in Dublin. And what's going is the cafe next door, us, and 3 apartments upstairs. And initially, when we saw the advert in the newspaper, it said Sweny's Cafe, which alarmed us somewhat.
Yeah.
So I wrote a correcting email to the newspaper, and they corrected it in their online version. And we told them what it was about, which we shouldn't have needed to.
Sure.
So thanks to the landlord for nothing there. But however, so that was corrected. We just wanted them to know that they're dealing with an awkward situation commercially.
Yeah.
Because we're not a cafe, never have been, and hopefully never will be. You know,
right.
The last thing we want is for this place to turn into a, can we mention names, dealing with a coffee company.
Is it
Starbucks.
located? Yeah.
Bacteria in Dublin here.
We don't like Starbucks. They're from Seattle. That's rival.
Yeah, well, we don't want a Starbucks, and then they have a little plaque in the corner or something like, this is where Leopold Bloom got his Frappuccino.
I believe, according to The Guardian, this is where Orlando Bloom bought
The Guardian of all people. They must have had moron number one on the job, but at least they were
taking
really
down the
ripping
Guardian
you
and
on
stuff.
because of that. Yeah.
Don't forget PJ sings a wonderful song, especially the last from opera.
Oh.
Yeah.
PJ sings that.
Yeah, if we do a song, I think we should close with a song. See, the rest of my questions are challenges preserving Joycean landmarks in Dublin. We already kind of answered all this.
Yeah, well, we are the one. We are the one.
So I'm hoping that our listeners will hear this. We've got a few listeners now. If they wanted to support Swenys, what's the best way they
Okay,
can
well,
do it?
our website, there is a donate button, also PayPal and all that. So that's one possibility.
They can buy soap online as well. So.
You buy soap online. Okay.
Yeah. Let me just yes, the Facebook, but the website, just to give you the address, is www.swenys.ie, not .com, .ie. It's the Irish version.
Gotcha.
As in, so there's only one E in Swenys, whatever. So www.swenys.ie. And so, you know, if you think you can afford something, even if it's $1 a month or flipping anything, it's all welcome because they all add up. And this would make a huge difference to us.
Do you use
by the end of the
Patreon or anything like that?
Pardon?
Are you familiar with Patreon?
No.
Because Patreon is a monthly donation service. So I know a friend of mine works at a cafe in San Francisco that is always kind of on the brink of closing, and they take monthly donations, and a lot of podcasts are supported through Patreon as well.
Never heard of that.
Okay.
It's always interesting.
Might look into it.
Yeah.
And it's a recurring thing too.
Definitely.
Yeah, perfect. That's what we need, not just one.
Yeah,
So,
the-
recurring is, at least we have something coming in every month,
Yeah.
as well as what we do here.
I think the cafe or the cafe in San Francisco makes like $15,000 a month just from Patreon.
Oh, wow. Well,
Which
we'd be
people
very-
just came in and spent that on
We'd be very happy
great
with
other
that.
things. Yeah. Let's see here. So you don't receive any money from the government or universities, other institutions, or anything. It's just
No,
totally a
in
labor
fairness,
of
we the only one we did is just around now, where the French embassy came in and they did a photo shoot some time ago, and I mentioned to them that the situation we're in and that, and like quite often, like even tours or that might leave money, and so at the time. They just came and went, but this week it sort of worked its way through the channels, and so they've donated €500, which is lovely. So we should mention their generosity, the French embassy.
Also, UNESCO gave us roughly €2,000 a year to buy foreign language books because we do 5 different languages here. So we use that books to buy copies in German and in Portuguese, Spanish, and of course Italian. Well, the Italians were given to us by the translators who come and they read with us here as well. The French ones were given to us by the French Expat Society here, part of the embassy again. So.
And if someone were to come visit Swenys, what could they expect to do here?
They could expect to be given a free cup of tea.
Yeah, the
for a
tea
start.
was delicious.
Well, it depends on the time of day, but I mean, we can do impromptu readings anytime, right? Our volunteers are all good that way. And then if you arrive at one of the scheduled reading times, you can take part in a group reading. And but quite often there might be a bunch of people in, and if I was there, I'd just say, would you like to do a reading or that? And then it's up to them if they do or they don't. Quite often, PJ is a great entertainer. He would sing them at least one song and possibly inveigle them over to the pub. Okay, you heading over? Yeah, okay, Bridget. So it's essentially about we're people. So, and we're also trying to spread the message and to make Joyce very accessible. That's it.
Yeah, I think we have equal goals then.
Sorry, can I just say 7ish tomorrow night?
Yeah,
Okay.
great, brilliant. Thanks, Bridget.
Thank you. Yeah, definitely the goal of our podcast is to make Joyce accessible. My personal goal is that for anyone who thinks they might want to read Ulysses but doesn't think they can, that, you know, through our podcasts and our writings and images that they could get a better grasp of it.
Yeah. Well, for a start, one thing you could do is get like some sort of a little synopsis of it. There are quite a few funny ones out there. And so you get into the story or that. And then if you're finding it difficult to get through, whatever like that, just flick through it and find bits that you don't find so difficult. So you start putting your toes in the water. We all have our favourite bits, you know, like I had earlier on, PJ has. And then ideally put it out there in social media and ask if anybody's interested in getting involved in a group reading.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be once a week, or it could be once a month.
Joyce suggested that it should be read aloud, the same as Finnegan's Wake.
Yeah.
And when you read it aloud, it dances, and it's full of poetry and full of music. So.
Absolutely.
And of course, it's one day in Dublin in 1904, the 16th of June, and 18 chapters, and each chapter has different places in it from Dublin, and of course different characters. And many of the characters, the families, are still living here. And they come in to us as well. So once you know, it's very much written for the people and the local people and Dubliners, and we're Dubliners, so and we enjoy being Dubliners. And I always say, have the book in one hand and the glass in the other, and before you know it, you're through it. So.
There you go. Thank you so much, guys. This has been really fun.
Yeah, I just want to mention that we're on Twitter and Facebook.
Oh yeah,
as well.
give us your social media.
Yeah, well.
And I'll put it in the show notes too, so that there'll just be a link.
Hang on, yeah, one second. Sweny, SWENYS, Sweny's Pharmacy, Lincoln Place, is our Facebook.
Okay.
Yeah, and as far as I know, at Sweny's, I'm not sure. I don't have the Twitter. I don't deal with the Twitter. Benji does that, but we'd be on it.
Yeah, I follow you on Twitter, so I will just look it up.
What we can do is we can cut this bit out.
Yeah.
I'll make a graphic and we'll superimpose it over the video.
All right.
And then we can also include that in the show notes.
Yeah, in our show notes too, we put our social media, and then we'll put your website and your social media and stuff up there too. If you guys have, I don't know if you have personal Twitters or anything like that, if you want us. Because this won't go out for about 2 weeks, so if you think of something, you have my email.
Oh yeah. Great. Yeah. Let's just do that.
Yeah. Did you want to do a song before we go, PJ? No pressure.
This is The Lass of Aughrim, and it's page 151 in the Wordsworth edition. And you find
the Dead?
Of the Dead.
Okay.
That's the Dubliners. If you be the lass of Aughrim, as you're telling me you be, tell me the first token that passed between you and me. Oh, do you remember that night on yon lean hill, when we first met together, and sorry now to tell? Oh, the rain it falls on my heavy locks, and the dew it wets my skin. My babe lies cold within my arms, Lord Gregory, let me in. My babe lies cold within my arms, Lord Gregory.